Be a better weightlifter, be a better gymnast, be a better runner. All right, guys, bit of a different video here today. I'm just going to review Matt Fraser's Snatch Technique. I want to point out what makes Matt Fraser so good, not only at CrossFit, but as a weightlifter. Some of you may know that Matt comes from a weightlifting background, and so the way that he trained as a weightlifter definitely helped him into his CrossFit career. And not in the sense that you would think, not just because he was very, very strong and his snatch was already so big and his clean and jerk was already so big, but the style in which he trained like a weightlifter, and he tried to be an exceptional one at that, that allowed him to succeed much more as a CrossFitter. Because I do believe that there are some CrossFitters out there who are stronger or as strong as Matt Fraser, but he's so technically sound that his efficiency allows him to get more accomplished in a shorter amount of time. Thus, you know, he's the best CrossFitter out there. So let's jump right into it with his snatch technique. So this is 305 pounds, which is like 139-ish, 138 kilos. So I think a lot of people are going to be like, oh, he sits down in the hole for forever, but I mean, he just said he hit a lifetime PR, so 143. It's a super impressive lift, especially for someone who just doesn't train weightlifting the way they used to hit an all-time PR like that is pretty crazy. But you know, he's, I don't know, 5 or 6 years older than when he quit weightlifting at this point, so it's not too unreasonable. But either way, someone at his body weight snatching 143, that's really legit. But it is grindy. It is a once-in-a-lifetime lift. Nothing about that says that he properly trained for it, but that's not an issue, right? I think in his head, he's like, yeah, this is fun. I mean, you could tell by his reaction, he's having fun. It's whatever. It's not like he's going crazy in the gym, because to him, this is not the end goal. As a CrossFitter, you're not trying to be a good weightlifter, or at least relative to other weightlifters. You're trying to be an okay weightlifter so that you can check that box off and focus on the other modalities in CrossFit. So I want to just talk about why Matt is so good. And again, it's not because of his maximal lifts. The main reason here is because he trained as a weightlifter. The thing that CrossFitters kind of misconstrue is like, okay, well, they don't have enough time to train as a weightlifter, so what they're going to do is they're going to try to get their most bang for their buck in their training. What that does is it shifts the bulk of their work, which should be around the 70 and 80% range, refining technique and advancing their technique. It shifts the bulk of their work upward, because they want to get the most that they can with the limited time that they can. And the issue with that is that they don't fall back into the positions that they should fall back into, and they don't ever really optimize their training. Again, to train at 70 to 80% and do it properly just takes proper coaching and proper loading. It doesn't negate the time use, and I think that's ultimately where CrossFitters go wrong. And this is why Matt is so much better than everyone else at weightlifting. I mean, there are stronger guys than Matt. His deadlift isn't that high. His back squat is pretty high, but it's not crazy compared to some of these other guys. But yet he always finds himself winning these heavy weightlifting events. And it's just because he lifts and moves like a weightlifter. So let me kind of explain that a little bit more. If we go back to Matt setting up on the bar, I already know, in this position, this guy's a weightlifter. And I know that's kind of like a snobby thing to say, but the way that he approaches the bar, a lot of CrossFitters, they approach the bar with a hinge. They'll resort to putting the weight back in their heels, and they'll kind of be looking down at the ground. And then what they're going to do is they'll take a big breath in and go, and they'll pull, and they'll have this big hingy pull, and it pops off the hip, and then, it's a pull and pray. That's what happens with heavier weights, and that is what happens the majority of the time with these CrossFitters, especially at the top level. What you see with Matt is his body weight is forward. He's over the top of this bar, but his hips are still low. He's got a lower hip start position, which, again, a lot of CrossFitters do not have. Now watch right before he sets up on his pull. Hold on. Right there. His start position, right? I'll bring it back a little bit. And I also learned this trick. A couple frames. Thanks to you guys on your comments in the last video. Right? This position is perfect. Perfect. This is what we're looking for as weightlifters. You want your hips to be as low as possible without pulling your body weight behind the bar. For some people, proportionally, you know, for me, usually it's going to be right at 90 degrees, but because you're hitting it dynamically, it immediately comes up, right? So if we go a few frames in, right here, that hinge isn't so deep. He's very open. He's ready to rip into that final extension. But again, this position is very indicative of a weightlifter, of someone who's technically sound, who's done a brunt of their work at 70 to 80% perfecting their technique, because his toes are nailed to the floor here. And if you see with my mouse here, so yeah, his toes are nailed to the floor. The pressure kind of rolls to the outside of the foot. If you ever see someone's feet and their pressure, basically as they pull to the knees, their toes come up and then they roll back, that pressure movement back and forth, it shows me that you're not actually pushing down into the floor. What happens is Matt has the majority of his pressure in kind of his forefoot to the middle of the foot, and because the knees have to get out of the way, that pressure rolls along the arches of the foot out to the side and then immediately snap back up. So it starts forward-ish, mid-foot, it rolls to the outside and then snaps back up. If you see people have these blocky feet, it rolls like this, you know that they're not pushing down into the floor. So what we see with Matt, right as he makes contact, his shoulders are still over the bar. Still over the bar. His feet are still flat. What you're going to see with a CrossFitter is shoulders are going to be back further, heels are going to be off the floor, right? And then they're just going to go up like this because they're so into hip extension. Yeah, extend the hips, guys. Extend the hips. It's like, people don't understand that extending the hips, just be in a vertical position. You don't need to shoot your hips forward. So you look at Matt, extends and immediately starts getting under the bar. Right? And again, this is round weight for Matt at this point. Like, he doesn't need to max out, but he was feeling it and he might as well try it. It's no harm, no foul, right? And then he ended up making it. You know, he has to grind a little bit. He's got to save it a little bit, but whatever. And the same thing goes for 315. It's the same setup, same pull. He ends up grinding a little bit and fixing it. Okay? Why is this important for a CrossFitter to move like a weightlifter? Well, because like I said, once they get tired, it's important to fall into positions that are better, that are more beneficial, that will allow you to keep performing the way that you should. So here we have a triplet event, which is I think it's a 400-meter run, 3 legless rope climbs, and then a bunch of snatches at 185 pounds. I'm not sure what that is in kilos. Super sub-maximal. We just watched Matt do 143. Okay, this is super sub-maximal. But I want you guys, while this guy's tired, I want you to watch how he sets up, pulls the exact same way. It's the same lift. And he's going to do it over and over and over again. Watch his toes. Oh, we're going to cut into Pat Vellner, who has way less of solid technique. Here we go. Does that remind you of anything right here? Same exact lift. We're at the knees. Pressure in the toes. Pin down. It rolls to the outsides of the feet. Okay, and then boom, right up here, his feet are flat, he makes contact. I mean, it's no wonder he's just beating the shit out of everyone. I mean, so one thing I could say is, like, if you're a CrossFitter out there and you want to be on a better level, you want to make it to a sanctional or something like that, like, be a better weightlifter, be a better gymnast, be a better runner, and then learn how to utilize it within your sport. So that's it. I think the most important thing, guys, that if you're a CrossFitter out there, or if you're not and you just want to kind of understand what you should do to get better at weightlifting, is dial in your technical efficiency and then not just look at lifting like you're accomplishing the thing, right? So the rules of the snatch are to move the bar from the ground to overhead position in one fluid movement without, bobbling it with your elbows, so on and so forth. Not just completing the lift in that way, but setting it up so that you have to complete it in the perfect way, and then kind of inch your way up. And what you'll find is the majority of you who become more efficient in the snatch, you will realize that training in the 70 to 80% range, at least in the overall intensity category, that will bring you the highest success. And it doesn't matter if you're going to be a weightlifter, if you're just weightlifting to be better at powerlifting, or if you're trying to be a better CrossFitter. You need to train with this level instead of trying to get the most bang out of your buck early on. To try and just lift heavy in the snatch and then hope it carries over into CrossFit. It's not as ideal as being consistent and technically sound. So that's it. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.